having your mother pass away, that is abandonment.
Yes.
You know, and the little baby thinks, what did I do? So
Yeah.
thank you for being here. I'm so happy to meet you face to face.
Me too. I'm a little starstruck, I have to say. I'm just so excited and honored that you asked me to do this. And I could literally talk about this program and stuff all day long. Speaking of what you were just speaking of, if I think about the old me, I would think that I would possibly turn this opportunity down for fear of not doing a good enough job or not doing what you needed or crying or something like that. I would turn it down, but now I just look at it the same way. I'm going to power through, and if any of those things happen, well, that's what the way it is. So, and I learned that from you. So
yeah, I'm getting goosebumps. It's an interesting space because I'm so focused on your outcome. I'm so focused on, did she get it? I'm so focused on, this idea that there's a more healed version of a human being on planet Earth who is less oppressed and suppressed and is less cloaked by shame and has more mental tools in her tool shed or his tool shed. That's all I focus on. I don't focus on me at all. So when people say I'm a little starstruck, I always laugh because I'm just like,
yeah, I am.
Don't be. Totally fine. Don't be. It's not necessary.
No, your energy calms that down right away. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so well. Yeah, that's important, because and I think that comes, Holly, from never having someone do that for me.
Right.
Right. And like now I always say, just because I didn't have a good role model doesn't mean I shouldn't become one.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And just because I didn't have that calming voice, especially as a female needing a mom, just because I didn't have that calming voice doesn't mean that I shouldn't do everything in my power to be that for someone else. But to do that, it's like you can only give what you are. That's the whole purpose, I think, of the program. Many purposes for the program, but I had to learn how to be that for myself, how to show up for my inner child, how to step out of the program and observe it and understand that initial agitation or that initial uncomfortableness was really my brain figuring out, like, are you serious? Are we focusing on self-love right now? Do you really want us to focus on compassion for the self right now? Because we're not used to that. We're going to need a little time to like rewire, like repetition, observation, and consistency, and just giving myself permission to like stick with and power through is a strong word, I think, but it's true what we can do. Like when we're having a Zoom call and things don't go well, but I always say what happens in one space happens in all spaces. So if I am struggling with trying to learn a new language, it's because my brain circuitry is like, what are we doing? And so my body's going to feel amiss. My body's going to feel what's happening, but that's normal. So if I start now, all of a sudden you're telling me, I need you to focus on myself versus the outside. It's going to be normal for my brain to go, wait a minute, what are we doing? We're redirecting. It doesn't feel right. And then on top of it, it's so counterintuitive. Healing is so counterintuitive because now I'm asking you to face the shame. And now I'm asking you to face what you've been doing wrong. Oh,
true.
And to just stick with it for the process of self-correction, because it's amazing. It happens like this because I have to reorient my subconscious mind's association with a new pleasure. So now the pleasure is focusing on the self and the pain is focusing on someone else. So now literally my reward center, dopamine and all, literally by default, I'm hijacking neuroplasticity. So enough about me. I want to talk about you. Okay.
I call myself a wonderful work in progress because it is a work in progress. And so I'm very thankful for that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for showing up. And, it's interesting. It's like, I reached out to someone else in the class And she's like, are you sure? I still feel pretty effed up. I'm like, it's not about not feeling effed up. It's about,
Yeah.
do you know that you feel this way? Are you observing it? And are you applying tools to work through it? That's what we're looking for.
I felt the same way. I felt the same way. I thought, well, I don't feel like, but then I remembered, you're never done this. We're never done this. So then I remembered that. And I thought, well, yeah, I could talk about this all day, like I said before.
And you know what it is, Holly? It's talking about right where you are, because it's like right where I am is where I need to be, because in terms of, I think eventually we're going to get to a point, at least I hope so, where psychotherapy is going to be one with like neuropsychology. Like you're not going to be able to separate it. Right.
Awesome.
So because chemically we make sense. If I have been denied affection, attention, connection, then and that is tied to survival, which is the reward center. And oxytocin is tied to the reward center. And I've been denied oxytocin, it's all chemistry. Then my reward center goes awry. Because now I'm still seeking that validation because it's tied to survival. However, my pathway to get there is one of codependency or not living authentically. So the path that I'm following, that I think is the path, is actually, I'm going in the opposite direction for personal growth. But I don't know that because I'm below the veil of consciousness. So when we tie in consciousness with psychotherapy, self-sabotaging behaviors, you throw in chemistry, I could be no other way.
Yeah.
You could be no other way. So that's like, oh, I don't have to have shame about this. No, you don't. You just have to stick to it.
Yeah.
Just stick to it. Right? Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. And I mean, I've been off and on in counseling since I was 21 years old. And there's something that was always never clicking. Now I know it to be codependent. Now I know that. But if I had those kinds of tools at my disposal way back then, it would have been a different, it would have been sooner, because now I'm learning it, but it's never too late. But the combination of all of them together would be, it would help so many people.
Yeah, it's true. And it's like, just, and then it comes back to, well, how can I make an impact, right? Because those of us who have this inner void, right, which sounds like you had an inner void your whole life, possibly.
Yeah.
It's there, but we're tied to the external validation, and we are looking, and when we get a hit of external validation, let's say of a romantic interest, or someone validates us, like what happens to codependency, I want you to need me, now you need me, now I enable you.
Yeah.
Now I'm depleted, now I hate you, now I resent
the whole gamut.
But I don't understand the neurocircuitry. I don't understand that my brain is wired, that the reward center is tied to something outside of me, not internally. So then it becomes, I think what's helped me in my life, and it might help you, is like, well, how do I flip that switch and make the reward center completely something that I can control? So then it's like what you're doing right now. You celebrate every milestone. I showed up today. Yeah. I was afraid and I did it anyway. Right. The old me would have, no, I don't think so. I'm going to pass. Especially if you have a little bit of time of thinking about it, right? She didn't contact me right away. Maybe I still got time to say no. I understand. So it's like celebrating those successes. So now all of a sudden the reward center is internal. It's not external. I meditated today. I journaled today.
Yeah.
You know, I set a little goal today. You know, I was a little bit more conscious today. So now I am snipping those cords to external validation and connecting to myself and experiencing really individuation. And that is the path to creating meaning in life. It's like, I have to go through this process of separating myself from what everybody else thinks and honor my own path. That's how I become self-actualized. It's through this challenge, right? Like I'm turning away from everybody else, my programming, what everybody else told me to do. I'm just going to follow my path. Then I become self-actualized, which is amazing. But now to create meaning in my life is I have to give purpose to my life. And so even though we can't fix every adult child, or we can't fix everybody, and we can't convince everybody that this program can be beneficial to them, what we can do is what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And we can inspire our community.
Yeah.
And and we can also model this new behavior.
Yes.
And so then all of a sudden, every day, I'm living a meaningful and fulfilled life. Right? Because I'm catching myself. I'm becoming a better version of myself. And in the process, becoming more with my divine self.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. But
It is beautiful. Yeah. I agree 100%. And I noticed those small changes in me too. But part of my problem is being hard on myself. So that is something that I really have to work on.
Yep.
And but the nice part is I see it. So when I'm aware of it, I mean, I catch it all the time. So but yeah, I definitely noticed becoming a better version of myself is a very good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the mirror for why you have some neural circuitry for being hard on yourself? Where did that come from?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I'm not sure exactly. But I had a lot of abandonment in my life. My mother passed away when I was 4 years old, and then my father remarried when I was about 10. And that's where most of my problems started, is within this not good enough space. And it was really, that was validated for me more than anything else, that it's like you be tough, you don't, there's no room for that, you and your hurts, take your hurts elsewhere, kind of thing. So whether that's the mirror for it, I don't know. I find those things hard to pinpoint, like what I mirror back. But I think all of it, from what I've learned from this program, all of it is survival. And I think what survival mode does to people is pretty harsh. I've lived in survival mode my whole life, so I don't know any other way. So when I do learn about this stuff, it's like, wow, people actually live that way. So to mirror, I'm not quite sure exactly how to answer that.
So we have the id, the ego, and the superego. Very Freudian, right? As a matter of fact, it's Freud, right? So the id is survival, your need to feel accepted and connected to those you love. It's primal. You didn't create that need. It's just there. It's built in. It's like an app on your phone. There it is, searching for a signal. And then there's the ego. And that's that little part of you that is aware of the id, but is also aware of the stepmom and aware of how she moves about and aware of dad. And so now you're learning to censor yourself, like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
You're still trying to sync up, but you know that you can't. Here comes superego. Superego is that voice in our head that says, don't do that. You're annoying.
Right. Yes.
Don't go to dad. He's busy. what's wrong with you? So
Mhm.
superego is probably what's got a hold of you, which is still tied to survival,
Mhm.
because superego is limited by your familial experiences.
Mhm.
So if I go to dad and I notice that I annoy him with my emotions, my exact situation, then my emotions threaten my connection to my dad. So superego comes along with the hammer and says, shut up, you're annoying him. But the back end or the root desire is to avoid future abandonment or
Yes.
potential abandonment. So even superego's intention is for survival. So Einstein says that you can't solve a problem from the same level of awareness or intelligence. I say awareness, he says intelligence that created it. So to heal the superego, I have to step out of that consciousness. So I have to observe the narrative. So when I feel like self-judgment, spider veins, gray hair, I made a mistake, whatever, right? I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm not enough. I realized, wait a minute, that's the narrative of the superego. And its real agenda was to keep me safe inside this sick family system or this not enough family system, but I don't need that narrative anymore.
Mhm.
So again, it's reframing even the narrative of the superego from a place of love and compassion. Oh no, sweetheart, you don't have to beat me up anymore
Mhm.
in order for me to fear abandonment, because I'm never going to abandon myself again or you. And it's just constantly rewinding the tape with that narrative. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I find that sometimes when there's so much that sometimes the words just get all bundled in my head. But yes, exactly what you're saying there. I can put that into my life very easily, what you just said. It's definitely the way it was. So
And so it makes sense, right? So if you're hard on yourself, so
yeah,
if it wasn't dad that was, well, it sounds like dad was hard on you too, but also having your mother pass away, that is abandonment,
yes.
and the little baby thinks, what did I do? And if I don't behave, then dad's going to die,
Oh, yes.
right?
That's my whole entire life. I feel like I was grieving my father my whole life before he passed away. And it was and I knew I was doing it. It's kind of weird. Like I've known it all along that there's been something, something all along. So but yeah, basically that was my biggest fear,
Sure.
was him dying. And yeah, so the abandonment has just been throughout everything, in friendships, in everything. It has affected me.
No, I know, dear one. And it's so sad, but it's also liberating to understand it at the same time. I always say enlightenment it's bittersweet.
Yeah.
And any child that goes through a divorce or the death of a parent, we transfer our need for connection onto the surviving parent.
Mm-hmm.
So now I need you more.
Yes. Yeah.
And oftentimes that parent is so overwhelmed with the death of the spouse and the needs of raising a child that they kind of go off into their own little world. And we as their children feel that disconnect. And it just heightens the fear of, oh no, where did you go? Which now my ego and my super ego, they're like sharpening the tools, like be a good girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is outside of conscious awareness. It's like, it's a very damning voice.
Right. Yeah.
And it's really designed to like chisel us into space to avoid this abandonment. But it becomes a cocoon, it becomes a tomb. How did it show up in like friendships?
Oh, it was always feeling rejected, fear of missing out, not being invited, that sort of thing. Like I would see that. I've had the pleasure of having some really awesome friend groups in my life and stuff like that. So um, I've never really lacked, but that's what I saw. I would always see oh, how come I didn't get invited? Or how come this happened? Or why didn't you tell me about it? And that kind of thing, which would always just bring me into this really sad place that that I just didn't feel wanted, or didn't feel wanted or enough to go. But so on the other side, I would be the person who would make sure every single person was invited. Like, it would never happen if on my watch, right? So I couldn't understand why I would fall off the list. So that kind of thing. So then all I did was beat myself up about that stuff. It was really, really, it wasn't good. It wasn't good for me at all.
It's the wheel of karma, because it's a mirror to like your childhood. Like, why didn't you include me? Or the fear of being disincluded, right?
Yeah.
So it really, it mars everything. It's our trauma lens.
Yeah.
Right. And so please include me, don't disinclude me.
Right.
So that really is like your childhood, please include me, please love me, please connect to me. Why did you abandon me? Right, mom? Why? And you, in search of that, never experiencing or touching that wound again, which is very natural. It's like the vacuum of abandonment. I don't want to be sucked back in there. It's too painful. But it was our inner child's experience, and there was no one there to help us through it, which is such a testament to the strength of a little being.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because that fear that we're running from was the fear of our inner child. That little girl inside of us, or that little boy inside of us, was dealing with that all day, every day. And that's why our brain circuitry is such that we see abandonment even when it's not there sometimes.
Yeah, that's
Right?
true.
Right.
I see it everywhere. I see it everywhere. And I see it in other people. And that's what really drew me forward to this, even more to this program, and to your videos and everything, is that I would be triggered by other people. I would see something and it would just be, whoa, I'm like that. I'm going to jump in front of that bus before that happens to that kid, or what, and I was seeing that, and I thought, okay, Holly, you got to figure this out, because they were really, really powerful feelings that I had about that. And then I've also, with my own children, I felt like I was always setting the stage to make sure that they were never going to be abandoned, and so when I started seeing that, I knew I had to do something, and it was more than counseling could give me. So
yeah, I hear you. It becomes the fixer and the rescuer, right? So it's our
Oh, yeah.
fantasy. So we invert it. In other words, like, we pray, and it's all valid. We pray to be rescued and heard and loved. And then all of a sudden, as we age, we kind of like transfer that fantasy, and we become the rescuer, and we become the fixer. But it's what, unfortunately, karmically, and quantumly, we're doing is rinse, recycle, repeat. And we're running from that abandonment wound. And that's why Rumi says the only way out really is through the wound, and that's so true. And if you look at collectively the greatest teachings of all, it's like they're all saying the same thing. Like, you can't band-aid this crap.
No, you can't.
And staying in the cognitive space, like in therapy, is not going to fix it. I have to get to the theta level, the state of consciousness and awareness that created the wound, and reprogram from that state. I'm training a psychologist who said that, she said it was your meditations that were different. They weren't a bunch of hokey pokey affirmations. The work of David Hawkins, I highly recommend it, because he's done the muscle testing where he proves that the body knows the truth. The body knows the truth. So if I say, oh, I am enough, and I don't feel enough, my subconscious mind's like, nah, whack-a-mole. But if I go to the subconscious mind and say, this is why you don't feel enough, but it's not true. Now, all of a sudden, my subconscious mind, which is the most important thing, because it's 1,000,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind. So now my subconscious mind is going, new data, new information. Okay, I never felt enough. This is why. And the feeling is valid, but the premise is untrue. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, the subconscious mind becomes a little bit more pliable to, I am enough. And so all of these planets, if you will, have to come into alignment. Subconscious mind, conscious mind, logic, reason, emotion. It all has to kind of like gel into this cohesive experience, if you will, for it to really stick. And that was that's why when I got out, I was like, I got to teach this. And it has to be done in stages because it can't happen. It's not a flip of the switch. And I also wanted to leave a roadmap behind so that people could follow the roadmap, right? Because you're going to fall, but you're supposed to. It's just, oh, a new layer of training right now. Oh, I didn't expect this. Well, right, because you didn't know you needed to heal it, but now you do. So stick with it and push past the pain point of it. And then when you get to the other side, that's when your self-esteem goes up. That's where self-confidence goes up. You could set the world on fire. And it's all internally driven now. So now the reward system is inside of me. I pushed through that. I had a moment where I was being judgmental, caught myself internally and said, no, Lisa, don't think that, think this. That person's a child of God, just like you are, for instance. Oh, that's your mother's voice. Your mother taught you to judge. That's not your voice. Would your higher self judge that person? No, then it's not you. Let it go. And then I feel good about myself because I did that. So it's an internal reward system, right? So I'm not saying, I'm not looking to anybody outside of me to give me validation. It's really cool once it clicks and you practice it, it's like, oh my God, I got it. So exciting. So what was going on in your life, dear one, when you decided to take the 12-week breakthrough coaching program?
Well, it goes back, it took me literally almost 4 years to sign up for this program. That's how long I've been, well, it goes way back further than that, but 2019, excuse me, I had a falling out with two of my stepsisters, and you have, just to preface it, my biggest fear is abandonment, right? So and I know that within this family, if I have a problem with one, I have a problem with all. So I'm going to lose everybody at one time. Okay, so this is my thinking. So anyway, it came to this point. It was, I knew it was bad. But I also always believed that talking about it will get me through. So a few months later, I gave it some time. I called and I tried to make it, fix it. And I was shot down in a big way. So there I call it my dark night of the soul. I had a complete meltdown. Anyway, to the point where my husband had to stop me and snap some sense into me. But anyway, so that was the point where I started seeing things about codependency. A friend talked to me a little bit about her experience with codependency. I started to read, so this word just came into my mind. So of course, when you Google codependency, you come up. So I started watching your videos, reading, doing meditations. I started meditating at that time. But literally it took me till the June 2023 class to sign up, because I felt a hump that I couldn't get over. I could watch videos all day long. I could read books all day long, but I needed that hump to get over. And I need people who were like-minded or going through the same type of thing, to help with that. And because I guess, I mean, everybody learns differently or heals differently or whatever, but for me, I needed people. And even if it was an internet-based program, because I don't have in my town, there's no CODA or anything like that. There's nothing like that to try and find people who are going through the same thing. So that's what got me there.
Yeah, research proves also that online communities are very healing and supportive. Just knowing that I'm not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
And I could talk about this. It's the suppression, it's the denial, it's the fear. It's like bats in the belfry that are like, Freud calls it tension. It's like, okay, when I start to open my throat chakra, I open up my heart space. right? And I open up my root chakra, then I'm able to talk about what's going on inside of me. And I don't even expect you to fix it. I just need a space to unleash it. I'm like the big sister nobody had.
Yeah.
You know, when I think about it, I'm like, oh, I'm a mama bear. Like, you become part of my community. Everybody's going to play nice in the sandbox. I understand intuitively that is so important to the healing process. Like, somebody better be in charge of this crap. Because if I'm going to start to like unleash and talk, then I need to know that. And that's why we have the moderators that we have also. And we're watching the board all day long. But your class, like you've heard me say it in the live streams, like it was like out of the gate. So it sort of felt like everybody was watching my videos for 4 or 5 years. Like, like, where did this wisdom come from? It was like, did you sense that too?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I found it surprising but really welcoming, because it was kind of where I felt like I was, so, and then to have other people who were there too, was really nice. Yeah.
And I never really put it together to like right now. I'm saying to myself, well, in 2016, I ran a class and it was like it was me, a couple of other people talking about codependency and narcissistic abuse on the internet, and that was it. And I was one of the first life coaches that actually had an online program. So it was such a different thing. So it was like, I was teaching these concepts throughout the class as well. But I think you're onto something. I think running the class in 2023 versus 2016, and people like yourself, oh, I've been watching you for 2 years. I've been listening to you for 3 years. It's like, no wonder there's like so much like, we're ready to go. We want them, because that's what I felt like. The moderators and I were on the side, like, have you ever seen this before? Like, how is this possible? But you probably figured out the piece of the puzzle for us. So thank you for that.
Oh, no problem. And it was like, part of it was just like thinking that I could just watch videos and do this was just, it was becoming more and more evident. Like, I've been doing that for years, but it was this fear of failure of some way, because you have to be pretty accountable and raw, and I knew that because I had watched your videos and everything, I knew what I was getting into. So that was part of it too, where you just kind of, oh, okay, am I ready to do that? I'm not sure if I'm ready to get my butt kicked yet, but anyways, it was just time.
That's it. You felt it. And I think that there's so much in that, and celebrate that success too, Holly, that, just really, because again, we're trying to reprogram the brain for an internal reward. It's like, I was scared, but I signed up. Part of why I feel like these interviews are necessary is because it's so hard for me as the creator of the program to explain the benefits. It's hard, and then are people going to believe me? Like, there are innumerable coaching programs out there.
Right. Yeah.
Like, how do I know it's going to work? Right. It's like, how do I explain the magic of it? Right. It's hard to explain. So that's why I think it's important to have the interviews. But I think it's important, like I said, reprogram their mind for the internal reward is like, I was scared and I did it. I invested the money in it and I put the effort in it. All I did was like, do what Lisa asked me to do. I showed up for myself every day. I showed up for my inner child every day. These types of thoughts increase your dopamine. They lift your mood. So now the reward center is internal, which should have been since we were little babies. But the first week of the class, when the divine connection goes awry, right? It's like, that's what happened. Right? That's not my fault. Right. So thank you for all of that. So what did you learn in the program that you did not know before?
Oh, I have a little list here of things. I'm going to try not to read because I can talk about, but I'm so afraid of missing something because I think it all needs to be said.
I hear you.
There's so many things that I learned that I didn't know before. My inner child, my connection with my inner child, and how that all works. Like, that's very big and deep, but the inner child connection was huge. The role of the subconscious mind, the week where we talked about the amygdala and the hippocampus, I was just like, what? That was just the really bringing it home, and the understanding of the brain, and like you were talking about, bringing all the different, neuroplasticity and all that stuff. That was the starting of that conversation. That blew my mind. I've heard of these things before, but I never really understood how it would apply to me, loving the self, and how that is everything. Essentially, it's everything. So that's a big topic. And another thing is, I've always heard that term, but I've never really felt what that means. Validating yourself, and just knowing that, becoming the observer, huge. Realizing I always, as a codependent, you're always thinking about what you don't want versus what you do want. And that was another light bulb moment for me. I was like, yeah, I do that. I do that. And it was really eye-opening.
Yeah.
And the last one, the divine feminine connection, that as well, like that whole piece on, when that goes awry in their first week, that was really good. And not to mention all the tools that you teach, the 1, 2, 3 process, and the pain versus pleasure principle, all of it, just absolutely all of it. But those are my main ones that I could say that I didn't really, may have heard of them, but didn't really get, that I got once I took the 12-week breakthrough program. So,
it's like Joe Dispenza talks about the heart and brain coherence factor, right? It's like, I've heard of that, but I don't feel it.
Right.
So it's like, okay, so how can I hack that? How can I, and it worked for me. So understanding all of these pieces of that which makes up the self, and breaking it down into bite-sized pieces, so that you as an experiencer, as a student, can sit back and go, holy Hannah.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what that's doing is that's expanding your level of consciousness. Right. And that's the interesting thing about consciousness, is that the layers are, they're an infinite layers of consciousness. Right. So, and that's what keeps me excited. It's like, well, how far can I go? Like, how objective can I become? When I contemplate Holly outside of the beautiful blonde hair and the glasses, right? And her yellow blouse. And when I contemplate who is she, and I just keep going, I keep going, I get objective. Wow, Holly's light. She's my sister in love and light, and keep going. Oh my God, Holly and I are one.
Yeah.
Come from the same starting point. We came from the same place. We're having the same type of human experience. And we'll go back to the same place. Like, everything's all right. Everything's
It is. It's all good.
It's like when you just developing that, and like once the door has been opened to the mind, like the conscious mind, and I'm talking about divine awareness, it's like, ooh, how far can I go? Which means I have to crack the code, the ego code, the wounded self code, the id code, the ego, the super. I have to crack all those codes, and understand the divine brain. My brain's not doing anything wrong when it wires me for codependency. It's how I learned to survive as a child, to hold myself back, to assure that you won't abandon me. Where narcissism, again, it's a coping mechanism in most cases, unless someone is born with a brain abnormality. Someone who is a psychopath because of an environmental issue, like a nurture issue, well, they're wired for survival too. It's like, okay, well, I just don't want to have dinner with no psychopath. They were there, So what surprised you the most about the program?
What surprised me, the honesty of the program. It's very honest. It didn't really surprise me, but it's worth mentioning the what's the word for it? You're accountable. That didn't surprise me. I kind of knew it, but to the level of, I can see where people would fall off sometimes if they're not ready to do that, right? So the honesty and the similarity of all of us, no matter what our classmates are going through in whatever way, whether it's family or romantic relationships, whatever it is, the similarity of the way we handle everything or the way we cope with whatever we're doing, that surprised me. It was pleasant surprise, actually, because it was really like, okay, so this goes into all kinds of different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be one way, because that's part of it with my step family. I felt like I needed to talk to somebody who had that similar
Correct.
experience with a step family, which
Right.
really wasn't so, because the way I cope with everything is similar in other ways, right? And
Correct.
also what we talked about before, the thing that surprised me was the combination of the science and the emotional and the psychological aspects just do so much for understanding what's really happening to you, and it's so helpful. So that surprised me. I didn't know that you'd go into like the amygdala, hippocampus, that kind of stuff, and I found that was great. So
What I learned was when I approached the healing level from a respect for my hardware, a respect for my brain. Well, what really happened? A respect for the subconscious mind, a respect for my essence as a human being. Well, what happened to you? Rather than just looking at my symptoms and feeling bad and having someone else try to fix me, if you can't go as deep as I am, it's going to be hard for you to meet me there and help me out. And I think that's what happens in the class. The moderators have all been there. I've been there, right? The people that resonate with our work, like we know where you're at and we meet you. If you notice, if you look back, like, oh, okay, if you go back to the live streams, you'll see Lisa and the moderators met us right where we were.
yeah.
And each week, the talk and the language started to shift,
Mhm.
right? Because we were helping you walk up and out of the subconscious mind. And every week we met you right where you were.
Yeah.
So, because we know who you really are, we know that you're worthy, and we know that once the human mind understands itself, automatically we go back into sync, because our divine nature is growth. Our divine nature is love. So we're designed for that. And so that happens just automatically, but you have to respect your brain. You have to respect your emotions. You have to respect this aching inner child that has this inner void. You have to accept the disconnect. It's normal. You've been looking outside of yourself towards your step family, perhaps aching to be accepted and needed, tolerating things perhaps maybe you should not have, avoiding things, denying things, talking yourself out of things, all that lovely stuff, right? Girl, I get it.
Yeah.
So
Well, that comes through loud and clear from
Good.
you and the moderators, and that is another thing that drew me to the program and watching your videos, etc., is that I know your story because you tell it all the time, and that you going through that, and you can relate. So I mean, I can relate to how you did this so much, and that's really worth a lot for sure.
Once you've been to the gates of hell,
yeah,
you've been to the gates of hell. You've stared Satan right in the face and said, bring it on.
Yeah.
And you walked out, a bit tattered, but you're like, huh, I'm in control now, like, huh, you sort of, you have this, you end up feeling very protective over the vulnerable who are willing to go that far.
Absolutely.
So that's why the moderators and I are like quarterbacks, are like, okay, it's going to be okay. Just play nice in the sandbox, everybody. And I think we're pretty fortunate. We've run in this program since 2016. It's a long time.
Yeah.
And there was a time I used to run it 3 times a year. So there was a lot. So it's all about numbers, but we're very fortunate. We've had like I would say one time where we really had to get involved. But aside from that, these classes are just so beautiful and everybody is so vulnerable. And, like I said, once you you'll see it in your own life. It's just going to happen naturally where, I suspect that someone's going to come to you and you're going to see in them what you saw in yourself. And you're going to start speaking to them almost in tongues, a different language, like recovery language. And they're going to hear it. They're not going to understand how to apply it, but they're going to hear it. And then you're going to be able to discern the person who's willing to go to the depths of the gates of hell and face all their abandonment stuff. And the person is just not going to do that work. And that's going to be how you're going to be able to tell, who do I spend time with and who do I kind of like, they're not ready yet. Because you have to be ready for this. You have the program. And when you're having those deep, deep, dark nights of the soul, plug into it. Mm-hmm. Just listen to a live stream. Just listen to a meditation. It'll get you through. So that's the worst that can happen, which isn't so bad. So what was the most important thing that you took away from the program that you believe most applied to you?
Well, and I've said it, yeah, I've said it during the program too. It can be no other way. It's one of the sayings that you say a lot, and it can be no other way. When this clicked for me, is just such a game changer. I can't even, I have a hard time expressing it, but when I realized how could it be any other way when I'm being raised by people who don't know any other way, and then it just clicked when I realized, with my mom passing away, my mom passed away at a young age. Then I went to live with an aunt who passed away while I was there. Then I had the stepmother and the abandonment with that. And I'm thinking, how could it be any other way that I would not have an abandonment issue? So that's when I stopped being as hard on myself and recognize that it's a bigger picture, and it's not just me not being one of my things is I'm not able to handle it. I'm very hard on myself because I can't handle it. I should be able to handle it. And when I realized that it's just generations of this happening, to accept that was huge for me, because I was still so deeply wounded that I didn't want to give any credit to anybody else. But this, I believe, is like it's the start of the path to forgiveness, for of recognizing that everybody is really wounded. And I stopped trying to blame and started looking at other ways, like of how I'm handling it, or just other ways, not blaming, just looking at it from a different perspective.
You're speaking and we take it for granted, right? When you said, oh, I stopped. What stopped, right, was neurocircuitry going in the wrong direction. What stopped was your brain by default was released of cognitive dissonance through logic and reason. It is the power of logic and reason. It's the power of an organized mind. Wait a minute. I am this way, but it could be no other way. My mother died. My aunt died. My father marries another woman. Okay, he's entitled to do that, but I never really felt like part of them. So how could it be any other way that my brain has been wired to fear abandonment? Abandonment is what hurt me. Of course I'm afraid of it. So when you say, like, I just stopped, it's important that you realize that what stopped was cognitive dissonance, that on a psychological and cognitive level, that clicked for you. And when it clicked for you, gears started to change in your brain. You started to build neural pathways in a completely different direction. And when that happens, and you go and you sleep and you go to rest, then because you're not reinforcing those old circuitries, those old circuits, the brain comes and marks it with a marker, a protein marker. It is unbelievable. Wow. Unbelievable. It's called neural pruning, synaptic pruning. So I write about it in the Soul School. That would be like, Holly, your hedges saying to itself, it's time for a haircut. We're overgrown. Yeah. And being able to chop itself. That is how magnificent our brains are. That is how magnificent. I mean, I wish I could hug my brain. That is how divine our brains are. And it's a gift from Creator. We're just not taught to use it in the appropriate way. We have been conditioned to think that our happiness is tied to outside of ourselves, in the house, in the relationship, in the kids, in the way that we look, in our pocketbooks, in our car. It's tyranny. We don't even know it. We're all being conditioned to seek and seek and seek and seek and seek. And so that's what really hurts us. But it's absolutely amazing. I just want you to really appreciate that when you said, I stopped, you're right. An emotion changed you. I said something, you felt it in your heart. Chemistry changed in your brain. Maybe it was dopamine, maybe it was serotonin, whatever. But when that changed, so did the direction of your neural pathways. Because until you change that, you stay on that path. And that path really is neural circuitry, because the brain's a closed system. Think about it. It's just a closed system. So something has to change in order for a new neural pathway to come. And that's what happens in this class, between the meditations and the journaling prompts, between the meetings every week, between the readings, between the homework. My goal was to map your brain in as many areas as possible: writing, listening, meditation, contributing to the program. All of that, you're activating different areas of your brain, which layers this information. Input equals output. So I really wanted to get you for 12 weeks, just input for 12 weeks, this stuff. Your brain will change.
So I'm sorry, I just said that is so interesting that you related to me saying I stopped, because that's what it felt like. But I really had no, whatever it was you said, that explanation just blows my mind. I really appreciate that, because it does feel like, but I didn't really do anything. It just, something clicked.
Correct. And that's the beauty of this type of healing. Your brain will heal by default if you give it the right information, because it's designed for love. It's designed for connection. It's designed to expand. Well, your being is designed to expand, but you need an awakening of consciousness. And when you start really oh my God, that's what my brain's doing. Yeah. When you stop doing something, that's because there's been neural pruning. That's fantastic. That's the power of looking within. And I honestly, diverge a little bit, but I honestly believe that the media and powers that be want to dumb us down.
Yeah.
So that we never learn about just how powerful we are. Because then we're making conscious choices. I'm questioning. If I can question my stepmother and my dad or my mom or my sisters, I can question anyone. My government, my doctor, the clergy. I can confront anyone if I can confront myself. So I don't like to be controlled by anything or anyone, whether it's my own neural pathways or it's anything outside of myself. And so I find this so important that we do this on the personal level, as well as a community level, and as a member of society, that we're not being governed by fear. And just in the media today, I refuse to watch any outlet that tells me what I should think, because the news has become the National Enquirer. Right? It's really not news. Facts are news. Opinion is not news. So it's oh, okay, got to shut that off. And so now, I'll go find what I'm searching for in an unbiased forum. I think that's important, because until you can escape your own matrix, you're part of a matrix and you don't even know it. Next question. So what has changed in your life since taking the program?
Well, a few things have, but my biggest one, I would say, is my acceptance of what is. Accepting what is was very hard for me. In the past, I would always trying to change it, externally blame, why are they doing this? Just accepting what is really freeing. Accepting codependency, understanding codependency has changed since this program. And one of the other ones was, and it's kind of all tied in, but was that everyone has the right to feel what they feel. So that's also given me the permission to let go of this problem I have with my stepsister. Everybody's got the right to feel how they feel.
Right.
Even though I, still deeply wounded, but I have to give those things up, and that's very freeing as well. My understanding of the brain, that has changed since, and intrigues me, and what you just talked about just intrigues me more. And the other one is setting boundaries. I have set boundaries. Well, I'll just tell you shortly. One was with my stepmother, and one was with my stepsister. A question that I had the big problem with. My biggest fear came true. They'd never talk to me, but I live to tell about it. I see it as it was one of your answers to me during the program. I can't remember which one, but that was just like, oh yeah, okay, I'm doing this today. Today I'm doing this, and I'm going to set this boundary. And I verbalized it. Maybe if I had to, no, and I'm not even going to say that because I'm not going to pick myself apart about it. But I did it, and now the ball's in her court or their court, and it just feels like I have taken a boulder off my shoulders. And so those would be the things that have changed the most for me, I think. I'm not afraid to set them.
So I think part of what we appreciate is that we have to, from a very objective viewpoint, understand that if I'm sensitive to abandonment, that's not your fault. So I want to be sensitive that I'm sensitive to abandonment, and that's not your fault. However, I am not chained to your acceptance because I don't need your validation. Be nice, but I'm not 4 years old anymore. So now it's a relationship of choice, treating each other with mutual respect, and feeling as seen as I see you. Because when you are a codependent like myself, we project our needs onto everybody else. You're never going to have a need if you're my boyfriend. You're never going to have a need if you're my kid, because I don't want you to feel what I feel. That's where things get wonky. We give everybody a second chance. We're so understanding. We're giving and giving and giving, but it's not being returned, which triggers our original abandonment wound. So it can feel like, oh, you did this to me. Where I think, and I'm not saying that this is the case for you, but it could be, and of course, just to contemplate it, are my feelings of being wounded a bit amplified because of my experience? Because that gives you power and control. Because in other words, like, I'm not giving you the credit for this wound.
Yeah. Yeah.
Granted, I have the wound, but I'm not giving you credit over it.
Yeah.
So now it's like, it's there, I'm taking care of it, but now I'm going to meet you where we are, and things are going to have to change. And if you're open to that, I'd love to have you a part. And if you're not, I'm open to you not being a part of my life, because I don't need this stress in my life. Yep. So either way, Holly, I'm good. It's an invitation for us to experience each other on a better vibration. It's an invitation to experience each other, not from wounds, not from control, not from needing to make me feel less than so you can feel better than. It's an invitation. You either accept it or you decline it. Either way, I'm good.
That feeling of either way I'm good is it's everything to me. And because I felt like when I was shot down originally in this, when I was trying to fix things, I thought that I felt like it sounds really out there, but it felt like I was going to die if they were gone. I felt it was so powerful and overwhelming. And to get past that and to get to a point where, well, here's, I'm going to be okay either way. Here's my boundary. Yep. And being able to say that was, oh man, it was indicative of all this work I've been doing, and just, wow, it works.
So happy for you. And it really was healing the inner child and healing her abandonment issues, showing up for her, reprogramming your mind, right? Reconnecting with the divine self, processing your emotions. So now it's like, now I understand that the fear and the dread, I felt the same way. I was like in my 30s and I'm like, I feel like if my parents disagree with me, I will die. Yeah. Well, that's because I felt like that's how I felt when I was 2, when my brain was wiring for these relationships. Okay. So of course I feel that way. But with this knock on my head, it's like, wait a minute, I'm an adult. You're an adult. We're women. You don't have to be in my life anymore. It's a choice now. How are we going to handle this? And I'm good either way. That's so freeing, so freeing. So what do you think people should know about the program?
Well, I think that they should know that it takes work on their part. It's not a magic pill. And I know you mentioned that throughout the thing, and it's not meant to, I don't think that those words are meant to scare anybody away, but it's a lot of self-reflection and self-work. And I think they really need to know that. But when you know, you know, when you're ready, you'll know.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
also I think that they knowing that the connection between everybody is really there, even though it's an online thing, but knowing that everybody was out there, classmates and moderators and yourself. I couldn't wait for Saturday mornings. I was like, okay, it's Facebook Live day. I have my phone programmed every Saturday to make sure and there was a couple times I had to miss live, so I watched it after. But just knowing the energy that we're all watching it at the same time, and you're talking to all of us at the same time was really, really wonderful.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, that's why I run the program on demand and live, because people don't want to wait for a live class, which is fine. So you can take it on demand. The stories that come out of the on demand are very powerful also. And then we offer people an opportunity to take it live, because the live streams are so powerful, so powerful.
Yeah, very.
So is there anything you'd like to say to your classmates, your moderators, or me?
Oh yeah, all three.
Awesome.
The first, thank you to everybody. And sorry, this is where I might cry. I'm a bit of a ball baby.
So am I.
But
So
it's
am I,
okay.
girl. But all it means is that, if this is my take on crying, it's a beautiful moment because I'm connected mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, totally.
When we're belly laughing, when we're crying,
I could do that too.
that's awesome. So yeah, no, because what you're feeling, other people are feeling, Holly.
Yeah, for sure. And I do know that. So excuse me if I go, but I won't go into a full out ugly cry, I promise.
Okay.
Um,
Never do.
to the classmates, I would like to say that you're brave and courageous, and it has been just really nice to know there's other people out there,
Yep.
having similar problems. Yeah, I cried because I'm happy, not because of
That's
anything.
right.
So to the moderators, I just say, wow, your validation on anybody who, or myself, I'll just speak for myself, but I know for others as well. But your validation when I posted something, just it meant so much and makes you feel seen, and that you are really understanding where this is coming from. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So to you, Lisa,
Gonna make me cry now.
speaking of courageous warriors, something has brought me to your program, to meeting you, to doing this interview. I'm just like so grateful. I can't even imagine what it is, but I'll take it. I could not be more grateful. You're my go-to online when when I need a boost of something. I'll put on a video, meditation, whatever, read my notes. Your kindness, caring, and sometimes tough love comes through toward all of us. It was palpable and it's immeasurable. It needs to happen. You can't, we need to hear it. And we trust you, and your love and your willingness to help us just shines through. And I'm forever grateful. Thank you.
You're my manifestation as much as I am yours.
Yeah, true.
When I was 12 years old, I don't know if you know the story, but I talk about it in The Road Back to Me. When I was 12 years old, didn't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
And I was so bullied at school one day. I was bullied at home, so bullied at school. The boy I loved just called me every name in the book. A girl that I befriended told him all of my secrets about him, which I never expected her to do. What a betrayal. I felt like the only place I was safe was in my mind. And I shared it with her, and she shared it with him. So I felt so exposed and so embarrassed in front of these 12-year-old kids, and I thought, I just can't face another day. I just can't face another day. I went home, and I knew where my father's gun was. I was going to take my life. And I was standing in the mirror, and tears were just coming, tears. And I looked, and for the first time in my life, Holly, I had this very profound spiritual experience, if you will, where it was like, shoot, I was out of my body. And suddenly I wasn't the emotion. I was the one observing the emotion. And this amazing feeling of empathy for that little Catholic school girl whose uniform was stained, a moment of self-empathy, like compassion, a moment of self-compassion. And it was enough for me to go, what am I doing? You know, there was some higher aspect of me that said, she's in pain. She's in pain, rather than I was the pain. And then I heard a voice say, put down the gun. One day you'll show them. I was just like, it was an audible voice. And I thought, oh, I'm schizophrenic like my aunt. I really did. I had this moment. I was like, oh, I can't tell anybody I heard that voice. I can't. And then I just kind of like, I slid to the floor. I put my father's gun away and I just sat there and I thought to myself, I'm not going to die today. I'm not doing that to my mom, even though she has no clue how she is hurting me. I'm not doing that to her. I'm not doing it to my dad because my dad's mom committed suicide. I can't do that to him. I protect my little sister and I protect my brother at school. I can't do, like, they're going to be mocked if I do this. And then the thought came, I guess I can't be bad. I guess I can't be bad because I'm going to go to school tomorrow and shoulder this for them because I'm not going for me. So I can't be bad. And again, I think that's where this idea that you have to have a purpose in life. Right? So suddenly I had a purpose. I was going to live for them, not me. Suddenly the challenges and the powering through the anxiety, the bullying, going to school. My mother's not going to let me stay home from school. No way. I could have 102 fever. If I'm not throwing up, I'm going to school. So that was just my mother, like there's no evidence, So the fact that I'm going to power through the bullying, suddenly I had a meaning. And that got me through the rest of 8th grade and got me through the first year of high school. But this idea that I'm never going to hurt myself because of them was very meaningful. And so when I look back on my life and I think, I wrote The Road Back to Me, I wrote all these books, I created this incredible vast YouTube library. I just want you to know that my intention was always you. My intention was always the person who was going through something that I was going through, whose heart was like this, searching for this signal. I wanted to be that frequency for you. I wanted to be able to be your champion and say, you can do it. And this is the way how you do it. So I think it's very profound to be this age and to circle back to one day you'll show them, put the gun down, one day you'll show them. And so that speaks to me, Carl Jung talks about synchronicities and this collective consciousness and how there is a greater purpose for all of us. We just have to live long enough. We have to live long enough and power through enough and be self-aware enough to come to the other side of all our pain and suffering so that it begins to have a meaning. Now you're on the pathway, you're on the doorway, really, or the precipice of, what is this all about? Where do I go from here? And that's super powerful. And part of what will happen is, because after I did Marissa's interview, she took the class 5 years ago. I've had so many people respond to me and say, I loved her interview. And the same is going to happen with this interview. Your journey is already going to inspire and touch other people. And that's profound. And that's what heals us as a community. So I would just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your trust. I don't take it lightly. I don't take that lightly. I believe that trust is an ingredient, right? Because we should have trusted our caretakers to protect us. We should have trusted their integrity, but we couldn't. So your trust in me, I take very, very seriously. So I work with integrity to the best of my ability, because I know that's important to your recovery.
I thank you. I mean, I am just grateful for this opportunity, and I can't believe I'm actually sitting here doing this, actually.
So proud of you.
So it's
on the back.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And I really, it's hard to convey my gratefulness, but I am so grateful. Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful for you too. And thank you for your time. Thank you for putting the work into the program. And I hope I see you in a future class and maybe even on the cruise that's coming up,
Yeah, I'm signed up for the masterclass already, so I'm in.
Good.
If this helps one person just sign up who's, or just go that little bit of a distance more, it's worth it. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
will. It
Yeah.
will every time. It's like me sharing my story. That's what, oh, okay. You
Yeah.
sharing your story. Oh, okay. So it does. Just know that in your heart, it does. Someone's going to say, I sound a lot like Holly.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot like me. And maybe I can cry happy tears too. Maybe I can have that mental.
I tried my best, but
No, tears are good, Mama. Like I said, tears to me are authentic.
Yeah.
That's a sign of complete union in that moment. And I think that's so sacred and so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with all of us. So namaste, Mama. Thanks.
Namaste.
Namaste. See you tomorrow.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Thank you.